small tuber of yam is 2,000.
And there has been a myriad of activities that have happened over the past 3 years. So we know 2020 COVID happened,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we saw how that disrupted global supply chains, and that of course affected consumer prices for food. And recovering from that, we were able to pick up a bit in 2021, and then of course 2022, Russia and
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine crisis
Mm-hmm.
happened. That affected global fertilizer prices because we depend on these nations apparently um, depend on them a lot for potassium and phosphates, which are two main components for the NPK fertilizers. And
Yeah.
so, of course, that's affected global food prices. Of course, if it affects fertilizers, we depend on fertilizers for food. It affects global food prices. But then, coming on to let's bring it down to Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, so we're just reeling from this, of course, global increase in fertilizer prices. I mean, it increased about 100 to 200%. And then 2022 happened, the flood,
Yeah.
the flood of food in the markets. Coming out of that, we've had currency devaluation, which has further exacerbated the price of fertilizer, right? Of course, and that, of course, affects
Mm.
global food and local food prices. And we've continued to see the naira devalue, which is affecting. We import these substances, these components of NPK, and of course, it's affecting the price of fertilizer. It's going up, and with no end in sight, really. And of course, now with the removal of subsidy, that has further affected everything, like the supply chain, the cost of moving. Um, Food from one point part of the country to
It's
the
the
breakdown of
different
yeah,
layers
exactly,
of the problem.
yes. And so
Uh,
sometimes when we talk about food inflation, a lot of the population they don't understand it. So
mm.
in simple terms, it is the amount of money you use to buy something, like you just
Mm-hmm.
explained. It's not the same. You go to the market, and if it's a 29% increase, what you were buying for say 100 naira is now 129 naira. And the truth is, if you go to market, I go to market, and I think it's higher than that.
Yes, I don't want to go into the politics of the
But
numbers that we've churned out as a country,
yeah,
but this is a big problem because when people cannot, they say a hungry man is an angry man. That's my biggest concern because we've come to a point where it seems that people can get into crime and blame it on hunger. A lot of things are blamed on, oh, the people are hungry and that's why they're doing this. People are, kidnapping for ransom and they say it's hunger because they're hungry, attacking their neighbors and, taking their devices and all of those things. And we say, oh, it's because they're hungry. At the end of the day, where do we draw the line between criminality and out, and and hunger?
yeah,
Now, I want us to look at how it is that some of those factors that you mentioned, including flooding, this is perennial. This is something that's happened over and over. This year, just a few weeks ago, the Cameroon said they were going to open the Lagdo Dam, and Nigerians are worried. The floods are coming again. Just over the weekend, we saw how places in Lagos were flooded.
flooding.
Now you talked about how smallholder. You have an interest in smallholder farmers. These are people who have small expanse of land that they farm on, and most of the time they do this to survive. And then what's liberty? And yet it seems like Nigerians are not feeling the impact of that. The federal government also has given palliatives for food and fertilizer to farmers, but how has this been? How would you assess this?
Wow. Food insecurity challenge in Nigeria, we have it's a myriad of different challenges we have, and it all affects
Mm.
the bottom line. We have the land access challenge. We have a very key one, the productivity challenge, which comes from inefficient use of fertilizers. It comes from our soil being degraded. Then we have the climate change challenge, the flooding.
Mm.
We have mechanization. The smallholder farmers, who we regard as the smallholder farmers, in my opinion, should not be regarded as smallholder farmers. They should be regarded as subsistence farmers because many of them do not even have up to 1 hectare of land.
Mm.
If you don't have up to 1 hectare of land and you're farming for subsistence, you're not farming as a business. So it is. So if you give a loan to a smallholder farmer with 1 hectare of land and you expect him to pay back, it's difficult because he's harvesting, he's selling, and of course there are bills in front of him. He has to pay school fees. He has to solve his health challenges. He has to take care of his family. So I mean, if it was a business, he would sell his goods, have some profits, pay back, and he's able to reinject his some capital into his business and expand. So we need to begin to, I think, restructure the way we look at farming. Farming is a business. If we continue to depend on the so-called smallholder farmers to feed our nation, then we are going to continue to be in trouble. We're going to continue to be in trouble. So we need to restructure how we intervene to help smallholder farmers actually farm productively and feed the nation. So back to the security challenge. Like I said, food security is national security, and that's why many countries in the West subsidize agriculture. A friend of mine was telling me about his friend told him in America he visited a farm run by a father and a son. It's a 100-hectare farm, and these guys were able to access funding at 4%. I think the tenure was 7 to 10 years with a 3-year moratorium, right? So I mean, 4% interest rates. Can any commercial bank give any farmer loan
4%
here
interest rate.
at a 4% interest rate and a 3-year moratorium? So that's subsidy. That's you're actually subsidizing that because you understand that food is important, and if someone is hungry, I mean, he's angry, and that degenerates and it affects, of course, security challenges and what we are seeing today. I mean, I hear of issues, people going to steal people's generators, removing side. It's crazy. So we need to begin to take this as a national security issue.
Now, did you also think that what the federal government has done with the palliatives, giving out food and all of that has further worsened the situation? Because many have attributed the food inflation to the mopping up of food in the market by the federal government as against releasing food from the strategic reserves. What do you think this has done to, the issue we're dealing with?
Sometimes when we're trying to solve a problem, we end up creating even more problems. Food. I expected that when the food security issue was raised by the president, that we would have looked at the whole system strategically and planned for, say, towards the dry season, because we have two planting windows, the rain season and the dry season. Unfortunately, one of the problems, like I mentioned earlier, productivity, is that a lot of the farmers are not able to plant during the dry season because of access to irrigation facilities. Apart from that, it is expensive to farm during the dry season. Last year, I did some farming. It cost me about 100,000 naira on average to irrigate my 1 hectare farm. That's just 1 hectare. I had a couple of hectares. So how many farmers can afford that? And that was when the petrol was
a lot cheaper.
Let's say 200 naira, right? Now it is 617. Really, how many farmers can afford that? And dry season farming is actually more productive than rain season farming because you control the elements. Yes.
Okay.
So when we talk about smallholder farmers and productivity, we have 70 million hectares of arable land. We have over 35% of the workforce involved in agriculture. 88% of that is smallholder farmers. Smallholder farmers that have an average of 0.5 hectares of land, and they are not productive even in that 0.5 hectares. So per unit of land, we are not even productive. And we expect that we are going to have food. It's not possible. So what is the success of a nation like America that operates mostly in large-scale farming, and how they're able to feed themselves and export? Why don't we copy that model? We have smallholder farmers, we have the workforce. Consolidate, put them together. We need to get, I've been hearing land banks. I've been checking, I have not seen any update on it, but we need to get state-run land banks that will make land available for these grouped smallholder farmers. So smallholder farmers need to begin to come together, consolidate, access contiguous land, because when we have contiguous land, not fragmented lands here and there, 1 hectare here, 2 hectares, we're able to mechanize, not just from land preparation, but also harvest and post-harvest management. Have you ever seen smallholder farmers threshing paddy.
Yeah, I have.
It's laborious from the slashing. So it takes them days to slash, to thresh, and it's not efficient at all. And then there's a lot of post-harvest losses that So we're producing more and we're losing more. But if we had mechanization from start to finish, that's fantastic. That would be so efficient. And I remember I mentioned to you when we keep hearing, let's make agriculture attractive for you. Look, if there's money in agriculture, you don't need to make it attractive. People will come. And in my opinion, we already have too many people involved in agriculture. We already have too many people.
You think so?
Yes, 30-something percent of Nigeria. If 1/3 of the country cannot feed the 2/3, then even if we attract 50% of the country involved in primary production, it's not going to still feed the second half of the population. So what we need is efficiencies in the system. Smallholder farmers need to be consolidated. They need to act like businessmen. 20 can come together, and I'm talking solutions here, practical solutions. 20 farmers can come together, form a cooperative or a group, access land from the land bank, which I'm proposing should be under NALDA, the National Agricultural Land Development Agencies. I was reading the mandate of NALDA, and it's housed under the presidency. And I'm thinking this is basically repetition of roles. This is what the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security should be doing. Why is NALDA saying? Because there's a lot for NALDA to do. Why don't they create land banks, state-run, state-managed, and we'll have land that has been we have the GPS coordinates that have been marked for agricultural purposes. A cooperative can approach and get 100, 200 hectares. And then, of course, that land, the soil quality, the soil characteristics will be checked. We should have a soil management unit in every local government or in every state. Soil, the samples are sent to the platform or whatever. It is checked, and then the group is issued a soil health card with fertilizer recommendation. Take this authorization from NALDA, take the soil health card, go to your bank, access funding for your 200 hectares, right? And the money don't have to be given to the smallholder farmers. They can pay it to input providers that have been certified to ensure the quality. Because another thing affecting our productivity, we are struggling with 2.5 hectares during the rainy season to get, if I'm talking about paddy now, whereas a country like Kenya and East Africa, most East African countries, they're doing 8 tons per hectare. We are still on 2.5 tons per hectare. And we want to feed ourselves. We can't even feed ourselves, talk less of importing. Did you see the recent food importation data?
I was looking at I was trying to do a comparison with other data, but couldn't really finish that. What's the let's talk about one other factor which many farmers have decried, not just farmers, Nigerians in general: the insecurity, the violent, attacks on farmers, abduction of farmers, and all of that. Many farmers have said, "Look, this is one of the reasons we can't even pay back the loans that we took," and some experts are recommending greenhouse farming. If you can't go to the farms, then do a greenhouse farm somewhere close to you that you don't have to be afraid to visit from time to time. What's the viability of that?
So it's just adding to all the other challenges that we have and further exacerbating the situation. We are struggling to increase productivity, and then we now have this challenge added to that. It's intervention, in my opinion, should be the security forces adequately tackling these challenges, because hectares of land is raised to smallholder farmers, and then they can't go to the farm. Many of them can't even access land. Many of them can't access funding. So what are we doing? What are we doing? Are we serious about food security? If you're serious, we need to be systematic. We need to be strategic. We need to think outside the box. We need to involve skilled parties that are vested in the security in Nigeria, parties that have practical experience. I'm not talking about appointees that are not really aware of what the situation is. We need people who have been to the field, should be part of whatever decisions that should be made. We have, I mean, NATIP, if you look at that document, the National Agricultural Technology and Information Policy, it's a fantastic policy. And we have several legislative acts to support that policy. But then again, the will, and I'm thinking, okay, so this policy, who is monitoring? Who is monitoring? Who is evaluating? Do we have year on year progress reports? If not, then what is the solution? How do we get to where we say we are going to be? How many policies have we had? 2027, we're going to do another one. Whereas this didn't even achieve 20% of its objective. We have funding available from, say, African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank. There's the National Agricultural Growth Scheme that targets 5 different crops, cassava being one of them, paddy, wheat, millet, and then we have the agro-industrial processing zone that is about to take off. The phase 1 is they're about to implement. So we have plans. We have it's the implementation process. We had the monitoring, the evaluation, the learning. If you ignore that, then we're not going to make progress. So this, my brother, it's a lot of.
You were going to share
challenges.
the import data for the import data
So
with us.
yeah, in 2021 we spent 2.71 billion on food imports. Food imports. So we import rice, we import wheat, we import fish, we import sugar.
Well, we were told we had met
those are-
sufficiency with rice production in the country. We had the rice pyramid that was on display here in Abuja for Nigerians in the world to see.
Did
You know,
did you check to see if it was rice in those bags?
well, that's a question for another
I don't
for another
know.
person, not for
I
me.
don't know.
But then looking at this, the focus on rice in the last 8 years or so, some have really commended it and said, look, right now we have millers across the country,
Yes.
and all this is a step from where we used to be. Now we can actually say we're processing rice in some parts of the country. Do you think that we need to look at backward integration for other crops like this, and maybe not go in the way that we went with rice, with outright ban or complete ban on rice, but look at other products and replicate what we did with rice?
Yes, we did make significant improvements with rice. In fact, the Rice Millers Association, really Milling Association, decrying the lack of paddy in the market. There's a lack of paddy in the market. Rice is. I don't want to digress, but we're just talking about rice. Rice is it's about almost 50,000 naira per bag, 50 kg per bag now, and from the looks of things, we've missed one planting window. We have another planting window, which is November to January, dry season, and I doubt that farmers are going to plant because of the cost of fuel. So it's going to get bad. And of course, India banned the exportation of rice, non-basmati rice.
Yeah.
So it may get worse. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we need to look. We have barely 2 months to figure out acts to meet the planting window of November. And I want to say this so that I don't forget. One of the things that we can do is we need to engage the smallholder farmers that we depend on for our food and sort out irrigation infrastructure. So distribute solar. Then in January, February, the situation is going to be really bad. So distribute solar powered irrigation pumps for smallholder farmers and also seeds. So I would rather give for me government intervention. We need to be more strategic about it. Seed is important because if you don't have the right seed, no matter what fertilizer you use, it's not going to give you the desired result. So it starts from the seed. Use the right seed. That's where government should intervene. And another thing, fertilizer subsidy, we've been doing it for years. What is the impact, right? You sort the farmer out for one season, you go back to square one. You're sorting me out for another season, you go back to square one. Are we going to continue to it's a vicious cycle. We need to move further. That's why I say smallholder farmers need to begin to operate like large-scale farmers. Sorry, what was the question again?
We're talking about maybe backward integration for other other
Other commodities,
commodities
other
and all of that. Say for instance, we take Yam, for instance, we were talking about export. There was this very Nigerian yam was sent back to Nigeria because they did not meet standards and all of that. We have the export processing units and export processing zone, all of that. What are we doing? People say charity begins at home. You cannot be thinking about exporting when your people are hungry,
Yeah.
right? With this, what do we do to meet the food needs of Nigeria and Nigerians? There's malnutrition. We're not even talking about that yet. People are not getting the right proportion of minerals and nutrients that they need to survive. We're not talking. People are just eating whatever it is that they can get to survive.
Yes. Well, it goes back to what, but I would rather we export value-added products than raw materials because not relatively, it is really, really insignificant compared to our importation of finished products. So we need to begin to ask ourselves, how do we add value to even the little that we're producing? That's where the jobs are. That's where we're going to create jobs. So how do we add value and export this finished product? How do we produce rice? How do we produce enough paddy that will feed us and also export to other, even African nations? How do we produce sugar enough to export to other finished sugar enough to export to other African nations? So for me, that should be the focus, not just farming and then exporting commodities. A friend of mine opened my eyes to this. He said, when it comes to enterprise manufacturing, we're lacking. We have a lot of the FMCGs manufacturers. They import a lot of flour, maize flour. They import a lot of commodities, finished commodities that we are able to refine here is imported. Take for example cassava, right? So we are the largest producer of cassava, yet we import cassava derivatives. Are you aware? We import cassava derivatives, but we're the largest producer, which means we're not producing enough to feed ourselves and to feed the industries that are built. Like we have industries that are converting the cassava to starch, high quality cassava flour. And cassava flour is gluten free, so the health wise it's even better than wheat flour in my opinion. So we have industries that need products that we can refine here and supply to even our local industries. I'm not talking small scale, I'm talking large scale industries. Before we begin to talk even about exports, yes, we need export earnings, but let's refine it and sell it. Let's refine it and export.
And I like what you mentioned about seeds. We're going to talk about that. The scenario you gave earlier. We're going to talk about having the right seeds to produce the right yield that would be able to get into the market and feed Nigerians sufficiently. The conversation continues here. This is Eagles Outlook on your radio experience. You can count on. We've been talking about food insecurity right here. Keep it with us. The conversation continues.
Are you ready? Child Cyber Protection CC Pro welcomes you to the second Nigeria Teen Cyber Festival. Team Cyber Safety, promoting young people and the power of innovation in the digital economy. You will be getting information on cybersecurity, innovation, and links on www.ccprong.ng or send yes to 081 330 98542. That is 081 330 98542. This is powered by the NDPC, NHUB, MeerKAT, Baobab, Instant Wave, WODD, and Eagles FM 102.3. Child Cyber Protection, promoting healthy interaction of young people and technology. See you there.
Yanga Lotto don't come. Come chop better. Where that's your 100 naira change? Oga Yanga don't come. Yanga Lotto don't land. With just 100 naira, if it be you, play Yanga Lotto today. Yanga Lotto, do Yanga.
Oga Yanga madam, make we do the Yanga. Like say we chop in Maka, brother, waiting with the matter. Won't you make it Yanga? Yanga Lotto, which come chop in Yanga.
Please listen to this announcement. A prestigious spa and salon needs the following: a therapist, a nail technician, and a hair stylist. Interested applicants should send their CV via WhatsApp to 081 579 17278. That is 081 579 17278. Thank you.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Eagles Outlook on your radio experience. You can count on. We've been talking about tackling food insecurity in the country. Many Nigerians lament the cost of food and how difficult it's been to get food. A basic necessity for survival. My guest has been Nao Soro. She is, an agricultural specialist joining us in the conversation this morning. You too can be a part of it. The phone lines are open now. Call 090-7353-0044 and 090-8766-8888. You can also send us a WhatsApp messages or an SMS on 090-9705-4450. Don't forget to watch us live on YouTube and on Facebook. We're streaming live there. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Abdullahi. Kind of put down the volume of your radio so we can hear you.
Thank you very much, sir. How was your journey, sir?
Very well, thank you so much for asking.
Thank you for coming back, sir. We are so happy to hear your voice this morning.
Glad
sir,
to be here.
The issue of hunger, cost of living, high cost of everything in the country, it just started because I told you time is outnumbered, that our leaders have jeopardized the future of common men in this country. And they are not focusing to fix the country to move forward, but rather focusing on their own personal interests. When you look at the previous government of former President Buhari, they have been saying it, but it was totally false. We have seen 8 years gone for nothing. Nigerians continue with suffering daily. And this is, Tinubu's government, we have seen the insertion of this cost of living and also abject poverty that is killing the future of the Nigerian youth, especially, our teeny youth who are supposed to be the leaders of this country. So that's why the problem won't end at the moment. When you look at the political leaders we have, they only unite themselves if they want to cheat on the common masses. And they can only talk of some, issues, especially when they want to divide the masses. They will only talk of religion. And the politicians have nothing to do with the religion. It's just when they want to divide me and you, they will talk of religion. But if they go to the National Assembly or anywhere where they meet themselves, they only share our national cake without remembering the level because of them. So we have to know our right. We have to open our eyes with the masses of the entire family. The issue of hunger won't end because it doesn't touch the leaders who are leading the country. It's only the masses that are suffering from the high cost of living. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Abdullahi Mekano. That's your submission. We're going to bring another caller in. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Henacho.
Thank you for joining us. Is this Comrade Haruna?
Yeah, good morning, the guest in the studio. This is Comrade Haruna from Kuji. I think I want to ask your guest one question or two. You have mentioned how to farm, how to get some loans and fertilizer and what have you. But there's an area I was expecting her to also mention on how to preserve. The next thing is to take it to the market. If we observe our tomatoes, there's a period a price of tomato will go high because we don't have much tomatoes in circulation. And there's a period we have excess of tomatoes and the price is a giveaway price. So I think government needs to invest in buying these products and preserve them so that when the masses need them, we saw how they invested money on exporting our yam to abroad. It took months before getting to abroad, the yam was destroyed. we
Come back to no. You've heard the
Yes.
callers
Yeah.
and their concerns, particularly how to now. Speaking of storage and
Service.
preservation, yeah. How do we
Post
how do
service
we
office.
how do we solve that?
That's a very good question. Because we are complaining about productivity, and then whatever the little that we're producing is right. It's the moisture level is low, so the potential that it will spoil is minimal. But if you have it needs cold storage. Tomato needs cold storage, and we know the challenge we're having with power. Um, I know of a company that's providing cold storage, but that's such a minuscule in one local government, maybe powered by solar, so that we don't depend, or powered by CNG, so that we don't depend, or powered by CNG gas. I don't know the technicalities of etc. We're still using those baskets that we've been using for donkey years. When we have modern technology to transport that would reduce the spoilage, we're still packing oranges in sacks. Of course, and then it gets to the market, half is spoiled. That's contributing to food inflation, because we know the laws of demand and supply. We're not able to store our produce properly. Then it's also it's one of the challenges, it's exacerbating the food prices. So we need to look at modern technology to manage fresh produce and provide dryers for smallholder farmers at the last mile to dry their produce properly. There was even a case of hibiscus being turned back from Mexico because the hibiscus leaves were not properly dried.
Yeah.
So that's just where they're challenged, I see opportunities. That means we need drying services. Can someone start offering drying services to smallholder farmers in their locations? How feasible can it be? I mean, like I said, we need to start thinking outside the box for some of these things. So that's the post-harvest challenge that you mentioned.
Well, let's talk about the seedlings you mentioned earlier. Lots of farmers do not know, what you spoke about earlier about, getting the right seeds. What we're used to, like you mentioned, not regular practice. Oh, I farm, I have some grains, I keep some aside, reserve some for the next planting season, and I use that too. What are the right, seedlings, and how do people go about getting the right seeds for planting?
Um, so one of the issues with our productivity is seeds. We don't have farmers are not using certified seeds to plant.
When we say certified seed, are we talking about GMOs?
So no.
Okay.
So there are 3 generations of seeds, 3 to 4 generations of seed. We have the breeder seeds, we have the foundation seeds, we have the certified seeds, which is what the farmer uses to plant to get grains. So those are the 4 generations of seeds. We have all 3 generations. We have companies that are registered with the National Agricultural Seed Council to produce certified seeds to sell to smallholder farmers. One of the things that my company does is produce seeds. So we work with NASC officials. They visit our farms over the course of the farming season 2 to 3 times. And then when we harvest, we send it to the Seed Council for lab tests. And then, of course, it's certified. They give us seed tags. So when you plant seeds, you're just ensuring that your productivity is better than if you use grains. Grains are different seeds. That is what, and I think smallholder farmers know this, but they're not able to. They don't. The difference, they need to be made aware of why they need to use the certified seeds as opposed to grains from the last season. They need to be able to understand how that would affect their productivity and the gains, because it's added expense for them. Faro 44, which is the common rice seeds that we plant, is it's about 600 naira, 650 now per kg. What would and you need about 25 kg for a 1 hectare farm. What is the motivation for a smallholder farmer, subsistence farmer? Remember, to use seeds. If he was a businessman, he knows how that would affect his bottom line, and of course he'll buy the seeds. So farming is a business. We need to transition our smallholder farmers to proper businessmen so they understand the importance of using.
Good morning.
Good morning, Paul. Glad you've joined in.
Thank you very much. Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
My friends, thank you very much for bringing this guest this morning. Like all of us should go back to the farm and try and do something with our lives because of this kind of government that we have. The guest there, I greet you very well for this explanation and enlightenment. You see, like what you said, I submit all your I support all your submissions, especially in terms of providing solar power generators for irrigation for these our farmers. You see, if we don't enlighten these farmers, we will not get anything from them. Some of them are just doing this farming from hand to mouth and so on and so forth. But if they see it as a business, they will change, the orientation will change towards farming. And if Nigeria can harness the potential in agriculture, it will be the money spinner, it will be the game changer in this country. Because when you go to most of these villages, in fact, I was surprised when I went to my village. I saw the little our younger ones are able to do their building houses from farming. You understand? And then we are just sitting down here collecting, working for salary at the end of the month. I just want to get a clarification from your guest. Please, these our products that are sent, agricultural products that are rejected from outside, and we are eating them there. Is it that the ones we are eating are different from the ones that are sending outside there? And if we are eating the same thing, is it that is harmful to our health? That's one question. Now, for the last submission I want to drop now is this. You see, until Nigerian government is able to bring out policies that are trusted by Nigerians, we will still keep on having all these issues. Last year, they did rice pyramid at the airport road, which to me was just like a scam at the end of the day. Why deceiving people on policy? And that's why you find the policy lack of trust in government. And all these silos that you made mention of to our guests, please, they need to be decentralized. Put them in the zones where they are supposed to be. And then my sector, which is aviation, honestly, a lot of things are coming up. Now, from the aviation sector, there is this cargo terminals that are being built now. Most of them are like 80% complete. They will have cold rooms, they have other things. But the main issue will not be the cargo airport. It will be how to bring all this farm produce to the cargo and processing. So our people need to be educated on how to export these things. That's where the export processing zones come in. So most of these things, the government needs to, in those days we used to have agricultural extension workers. What happened with them? Because I remember my father would go with those people, they'll go and teach them how to use rulers with measuring, how to put the next feet, and so on and so forth. So I'm really enjoying your guests in the studio. If you don't get the right seedlings, we can't get the right produce. So a lot of things need to be done in this country. Let us see agriculture as one of the best sectors that can turn around the fortunes of this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Now you heard Paul. All of the commendations coming to you. So let's quickly talk about some, like he has mentioned, some of the challenges. Let's talk about solutions quickly to some of these problems that you have identified and how we can move forward, to fix all of these.
Yeah, he asked a question about safe use.
Yes, the safe consumption of
some of the. So every country has their own standards. Some are higher than some are more stringent than others. So perhaps our product didn't meet their standard. And one of the things that I know that is affecting our products is high use of pesticides. Some of the pesticides that we use in Nigeria have been banned in those countries, but we are still using them. So that's on NAFDAC. We need to begin to review what pesticides we're using and how safe it is, and the long-term effects on our health. We mentioned inadequate drying. That's what is happening to some of the commodities that we're sending abroad. They were not dried properly. So we need to have standards, and we need to have we need those standards to be upheld by the agencies that is responsible for doing that. And then you talked about solutions. So for me, increasing productivity, right? Because we cannot do away with our smallholder farmers. They are there, but we can transition them to businessmen and women. I mentioned the land banks, how we can utilize that kind of structure for smallholder farmers to access even more land, contiguous land that will be fully mechanized. I mentioned how we can soil regeneration, using the right fertilizer, getting the soil characteristics of specific areas, using the right fertilizer dose for those soils, of course, crop-specific fertilizer doses, accessing funding. You have access to the land from NALDA, you have your soil health card, you can access funding. The banks can pay directly to the input providers, the fertilizers, the chemicals, and even the seed providers, and say, deliver this to this cooperative in this location, right? That eliminates the access to land challenge. That eliminates access to quality inputs challenge, right? And then we have a lot of private sector non-profits doing a lot of work in extension. So we have extension workers that have been trained in modern agricultural practices that can also provide support to these corporates, these farmer groups. We need to be strategic, we need to be systematic. The way we are doing it is, we are not like, okay, for example, we talked about the emergency. And this emergency was pronounced after the planting season, right? What I expected was mobilization of resources and the specific plans to meet dry season farming, because you were distributing, for me, I think I heard they were distributing fertilizers in July?
In July.
When farmers had already finished planting. Are you giving it to them for dry season? What is the plan for dry season? That is what I expected to hear. How much land have we allocated for dry season? What is the plan? You know, but maybe there's something in the pipeline and we don't know. Hopefully.
Let's hope that there is. Musa Monday says, I want to know how to preserve palm oil, if there is any preservative to preserve palm oil. Is there anything like that you know of?
No, that's not my... no.
All right, this would be a good place to leave the conversation. It's been an interesting conversation with you. Now,
Thank you
Usara
so much.
is an experienced program and business management executive and is currently the CEO of Fadila Crop Services, an innovative firm that combines sustainability, agriculture, and productivity. Thank you so much for talking with us.